So let me ask you something. How do you defeat an enemy that has millions of soldiers when you have no army, no armor, not even a single weapon? I mean, it sounds completely impossible, right? Well, today we're going to dive into the story of the one warrior who did exactly that.
Just try to picture this for a second. You're standing on a hill, looking out at the most powerful empire on the planet, and you whisper that. It sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? Delusional even. But for a young man named Arin, this wasn't some daydream. It was a plan.
I mean, just look at this matchup. It's almost a joke. On one side, you have the Empire of Valderin, a total military juggernaut. And on the other side, there's Arin. And what's he armed with? A notebook. So the real question, the one we're all thinking, is how in the world is a notebook supposed to beat an entire army?
All right, so let's really set the scene here. You know, we've all heard the story of David versus Goliath, but this is like David showing up without even the slingshot. Seriously, it's just one kid against the combined force of the most powerful empire in history. And here's the kicker. This is so important. Arin wasn't just some scrappy underdog. Nope. People saw him as a complete non-threat. He didn't have any of the skills that his world thought made a warrior. He was totally overlooked, underestimated, and laughed at. Which, as you're about to see, turned out to be his single greatest advantage.
Okay, so if the guy's got no muscle, what does he have? Where did his power actually come from? Well, it came from something that everyone has, but almost no one really uses, his ability to truly see what was happening right in front of him.
You see, for Arin, observation wasn't just sitting back and passively watching things. No way. It was an active, strategic weapon. He wasn't just looking, he was decoding. He was picking up on all the little things everyone else just dismissed as noise. Patterns in how people acted, tiny mistakes in leadership, secrets whispered in the market. That was his real weapon.
And this right here, this quote gets to the very heart of his entire philosophy. While other conquerors looked at an empire and saw a giant physical fortress, a mountain of stone and steel they had to smash, Arin saw it for what it really was, just a collection of people. And he knew a fundamental truth. You can't move a mountain, but you can definitely move people. So, great idea. But how do you actually put it into practice? Well, he launched a war. An invisible war. One that wasn't fought on a battlefield with swords and shields, but inside the minds of the empire's own citizens.
His first move was just brilliant in its simplicity. He didn't storm the gates, he just walked right through them. Because he looked like no one important, he was treated like no one important. And just like that, he became invisible. Free to move around, and more importantly, to listen. And oh, did he listen. And what he heard weren't the sounds of a strong, unified empire. He heard the sounds of a foundation starting to crack. He heard merchants complaining, soldiers whispering about how exhausted they were, and families feeling like they'd been completely forgotten. From the outside, the empire looked like solid rock, but from the inside, it was rotting away.
All this listening led him to this devastatingly simple three-step strategy. First, just listen and find the cracks that are already there. Second, don't start new fires. Just pour a little fuel on the ones already burning. Craft a few stories to widen those cracks. And third, this is the genius part. Do nothing. Just wait. Let the poison of doubt and fear do all the heavy lifting for him.
And it worked with terrifying speed. A little rumor about new taxes starts to spread, and suddenly merchants begin hoarding their goods. And then scarcity hits. Panic starts to set in.
Then a whisper about some infighting between the generals, and all of a sudden, the soldiers hesitate. They start to question their orders. They start to question their leaders. And those same stories, they make their way up the chain of command. They turn the military leadership against itself, trust disappears, and paranoia takes its place. Suddenly, allies are looking at each other like they're rivals.
And just like that, without a single arrow being fired by an outside enemy, the most powerful empire in the world began to eat itself alive. It wasn't conquered, it just collapsed.
Which brings us to the final scene. Arin walks into the palace, not as a conqueror, but as the inevitable conclusion. And the emperor, surrounded by chaos he can't control, finally meets the person responsible for his ruin.
The emperor, he just can't comprehend what happened. He's looking for some kind of tangible weapon, some kind of magic. He can't accept that his whole world was brought down by something as simple as words.
And Arin's answer? It's just brilliant, and it's devastatingly simple.
I used what you forgot. People. The emperor was so focused on his walls, his weapons, and his power, he forgot the very foundation his empire was built on. The people. He ignored their fears, their hopes, their trust. Arin didn't.
So, what's the ultimate takeaway here? It's that real, lasting power, it isn't built on brute force. It's built on perception, on psychology, on empathy. The ability to understand what moves people. That is a far greater weapon than any sword ever made.
And this isn't just a lesson for taking over empires. It's really a blueprint for success in any part of your life. In business, in leadership, even in your personal life. These 4 steps, observing carefully, thinking deeply, understanding people, and then acting wisely, those are the keys to doing what everyone else thinks is impossible.
So, we'll leave you with this question to think about. In a world that often rewards the loudest voice and the biggest show of force, maybe true influence lies with those who listen, who observe, and who understand. The most powerful person isn't always the one yelling. It's the one who gets it. Is that person you?